north of the richly shadowed land of Typhris, in the eastern arm of the Sea of Memories, lies the kingdom of Vurland, green with stretching forest land and hills of clover. A short ways off her western coast is the city of Bontavia, the ruling seat of Vurland's human lands. It is home to nobles, tradesmen, and thousands of peasants. Vurland is a kingdom racked with wars and civil strife over the past 2 years. Her people's spirit is barely unbroken, pressing forth with hopes of rebuilding. Though her darkest night has passed, the aftermath of suffering does not wane swiftly. Through the fog of a dream she beckoned. It was not a natural fog, such as the ones which rolled across the Bontavian harbor, but a fog of shadow and frost. He could see only but her hand, pale with black fingernails and hints of trailing cloth. With grace, almost too slow, did her hand beckon, and then her voice. It called like a song floating within his mind, smoke trapped in a bottle, a memory which could only be felt, not understood.
Argyle.
Her haunting voice slowly called his name.
The fire burns within you. Come, join. You owe a debt of gratitude.
Argyle felt the fire within, as he had felt it many times before. He felt it within his chest, heavy and gnawing. He felt it in the burning tears that he fought back. He fought lest it consume him.
Come,
she spoke, her words a dirge.
The cold shall embrace you. The fire shall be put to rest. Do not let your fear overtake you. Let it save you.
He felt the cold from the billows of the rolling fog, floating with the woman concealed within, floating with her song voice, closer always, yet never reaching him. He set his eyes upon the fog, and the figure dancing inside it. A silhouette she was to his blurred eyes, no more. At once he felt 2 urges, to take her outstretched hand, to feel her alabaster skin in the cold of the shadowed mist, and as well to step back. No, to run. There was a loud booming sound, and the mist began to recede, taking with it the dark dancer.
You are not ready.
Again, a loud sound boomed, this time waking Argyle from the dream fog.
Say watch! Hello! Anyone in there?
Argyle's eyes thrust open, and a tinge of panic hit him immediately. He sat up in the dark, dingy warehouse, pulling off the ragged blanket he'd lain with. It was cold in the room, and the wood plank floors were not comfortable.
Say watch! Open the door! If you don't open it, we'll break it down!
Argyle scrambled to his feet and grabbed his belt. It held 2 things, a pouch with 2 silver coins and a dagger sheathed. The belt was fashioned of leather, stained dark. His boots, trousers, and vest were of the same material, and over it all he wore an ill-kept coat jacket. His hair was dark brown, nearly black, and it came just past his chin to contrast with his fair Verlish skin and blue eyes. His face was 4 days unshaven, and many days unwashed. There was a sound of a steel-shod boot and a pommel striking the door. Argyle looked about the run-down warehouse room around him. There was but one door, which was soon to be busted in. There were 2 filmy windows, one by the door, and one on the adjacent wall farther away. This one was half broken, and almost directly above it was a hole in the ceiling through which leaked in the chilling night air. The food Argyle had stolen had been paltry, and already he felt his belly running empty. The coins he had stolen, and not stolen well, would soon be spent too. Argyle cursed. "Damn, too little to get into so much trouble for," and the decision to flee came without further hesitation. Argyle is entering a skill challenge here to try to flee away from these city watchmen that are attempting to bust into the rundown warehouse room in which he was sleeping or squatting. The first skill check he is making is an athletics check to climb up the broken window. He gets a 17, and that is a success. He climbs up into the broken windowsill, jumps, grabs the ceiling hole, and pulls himself up onto the roof. The next check he makes is an acrobatics check to navigate the roof. He gets a 16 acrobatics. That is a success. He navigates to the side of the roof, which is away from the watchman, carefully walking on the angled, shingled slope. And the next check he is making is another athletics check to climb down. He grabs a hold of the wooden framework and the cheap, worn masonry. He gets a 22 athletics check, and he descends safely. At this point, he hears the sound of the guards breaking the door down from within the warehouse room inside. The next check he is making is a stealth check to try to move unseen through the Bontavia the Bontavian slums here at night. Excellent. His stealth check is a 27. He has accrued 4 successes, and this small skill challenge has ended with victory on his behalf. He flees the scene. Argyle slipped through the dark alleyways and between the run-down buildings of the slums district. Tenements housing paupers and labormen stood in dense packings, with dirty walkways cut into narrow streets between them. All was quiet, and a slight drizzle began to drip down from the sky. The night was cold for spring, possibly the last cool front before the steady warm days arrived. "I've got to stay somewhere else tonight," Argyle thought, not at all liking the idea of a run-in with the city watch. The guards were known to disdain having to deal with incidents in the slums, and therefore generally had very little patience with those they encountered there, and in a case such as Argyle's, very little mercy, especially if they got onto a chase. As far as he was concerned, though, he had made a clean getaway. "It's unlikely they'll try to trail me far. As long as I don't try to press my luck too much, this should all blow over before too long." Argyle stopped in an alley of grimy, potholed cobblestone. Nearby, a homeless man slumbered under a makeshift overhang. Argyle eyed him. "I guess it could be worse. Now let's see. I could try to stay with Garin, or perhaps Brenna would have a bit of sympathy for me." These were perhaps the only 2 friends Argyle had in the whole city. Garin, like Argyle, mainly fended for himself, having no family in Bontavia. He was an orphan, he claimed, raised harshly in the Lilybrook orphanage until the day he ran away at the age of 14. Garin was nearly 21 now. In the last 7 years, he'd made his way any way that he could, whether it be through laboring or thieving, bullying or gambling. Not more than 2 weeks ago, Garin had joined with a gang of sorts and set himself to make an earning doing various seedy jobs. A thug, Argyle had called him, to which Garin snapped, "Say what you want, but when you're stealing stale bread, I'll be sitting at Mort's pub drinking a fresh pint." Brenna, on the other hand, did not have such physical resolve, but nor did she have quite as questionable of ties. She lived with her family in the slums, her mother, father, 2 brothers, and her grandmother, in a too small rented flat. Their family had always been poor laborers, always struggling as they went. Brenna herself was fond of singing and possessed some lesser magical talent. She fancied the idea of one day becoming a known Vurlish bard. On more than one occasion, she and Argyle had worked together to earn a night's meal and some coin, though her style involved a bit more charm. Argyle recalled her saying, "I believe everyone has some small amount of magic in them. Most just never learn to make use of it. And it's our job to get the best of those fools and make sure that we use their coin on something more productive." In the alley, under a lightly drizzling night sky, Argyle pondered his direction. "By the way, neither Garin nor Brenna will be happy for the disruption. I'd be lucky just for one of them to lend some sympathy. I suppose I could always stay at that old mausoleum in the cemetery, though the hard stone and the cobwebs are none too inviting."